There's one last piece of configuration that we have to set up on our production Kubernetes cluster before we can actually deploy our application. If you open up your code editor right now and find your K8s directory, you'll recall that we had set up that ingress service. And the ingress service relied upon the ingress nginx project, which we had installed into our local Minikube cluster through the use of that Minikube add-ons enable ingress command. It was specifically that command that allowed us to use this nginx ingress into our local cluster. Now we have to go through a very similar setup on our production Kubernetes instance as well. So by default, the cluster that we just created right here has absolutely no idea of what a Kubernetes, or excuse me, a nginx ingress is, and we have to install it as a separate service. Now, as a quick reminder, when we install that ingress, we're going to get a couple of things created for us. First off, we've got the ingress config, which is that ingress config file we've already created inside of our project. But we have to go through that additional setup that is going to create the load balancer service, map it to a Google Cloud load balancer, and then also set up a deployment running the ingress controller and the actual nginx pod that's going to do the real routing. So this is all some additional setup or some additional installation process above and beyond everything that we've already done. Now, to get the setup directions for this, we can go back to the documentation for the ingress nginx page. So the URL for that right here. Remember, we do not want Kubernetes ingress, we want ingress nginx. And so I'm going to copy this URL right here, github.com/kubernetes/ingress nginx. And I'll open that in a new tab inside my browser. Now at the very top of this GitHub repository is the home page for this project. So I'm going to go there right now. And then at the top of this page is a section marked as deployment, which has directions on deploying this project out to either a local or production environment. So I'll go to deployment. And then inside of here, you'll recall that there's both the mandatory command and the provider specific commands on here as well. So if we wanted to, we could use this mandatory command, but we're going to do things a little bit differently this time around. If you go back up to the top here and look at contents, you'll notice that down at the bottom, the very last option is using Helm. So let's talk about exactly what Helm is. I'm going to click on that link, and it says right here that the controller can be installed using Helm. So what's Helm? Well, really straightforward. Helm is essentially a program that we can use to administer third-party software inside of our Kubernetes cluster. So just as we've been talking about, yeah, we want to get some outside software into our cluster.